I want to bring in former Trump campaign senior trade and jobs advisor Curtis Ellis. Curtis, did the president go too far with these remarks?
No, this was a wake-up call. It's about time everybody puts this in perspective here. All this talk about tariffs and how much it costs. Everybody knows the price of everything but the value of nothing. We are in a battle for the continued existence of the free enterprise system for America itself. He talked about the fentanyl killing 100,000 Americans a year. This is real. About the destruction of our industries. This is very real. There may be some short-term pain here, but we need to maintain our way of life, our economy. We cannot continue to have an economy based on free enterprise principles when the second largest economy in our trading partner doesn't respect any of that.
Curtis, I think a lot of market participants would agree with you in terms of the long-term strategy.
That's right.
But short-term, as they are experiencing this volatility, it hurts. When Americans look at their 401k balances, it hurts on a day when the Dow closes down more than 600 points. There are a lot of people who are looking at Peter Navarro and saying he's the problem in terms of advising the president. What are your thoughts?
The problem is Xi Jinping. The problem is the Chinese Communist Party that wants to exterminate our industries. Long term, I will tell those people who are worried what my financial advisor tells me. Look at the long term.
Curtis, I'm sorry, I got to break in, and I'm sure you would approve of this break-in because it's from President of the United States. President Trump tweeting right now, for many years, China and many other countries has been taking advantage of the United States on trade, intellectual property theft, and much more. Our country has been losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year to China with no end in sight. It continues. Sadly, past administrations have allowed China to get so far ahead of fair and balanced trade that it has become a great burden to the American taxpayer. As president, I can no longer allow this to happen. In the spirit of achieving fair trade, we must balance this very unfair trading relationship. China should not have put new tariffs on $75 billion of U.S. product, politically motivated, starting on October 1st. The $250 billion of goods and products from China currently being taxed at 25% will be taxed at 30%. Additionally, the remaining $300 billion of goods and products from China that was being taxed from September 1st at 10% will now be taxed at 15%. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So, Curtis, he is up the ante.
That's right. Look, previous generations have sacrificed far more to defend our country. This is a very small price to pay to protect our way of life in our country, because that is what is at stake here. There's a new movie out called American Factory that shows what it's like to work under Chinese masters. It is not a pretty picture, and that's exactly what China has in mind for all of us.
Curtis,
they want to control the world.
Go ahead, Adam.
So I have a question. So let's leave the Chinese aside for a moment because we know what they've done wrong. Do you think it's part of the free enterprise system for the President of the United States to tell American companies where they can make their products by tweet?
He is telling, well, look, the U.S. Congress and the past president...
Is it part of the free enterprise system that you started your comments? That's really my question. Is this an example of free enterprise?
Well, here's a question to you. Is it part of the free enterprise system to invest in a communist dictatorship that doesn't respect private property?
Well, you just asked two questions rather than one, but the fact is,
right. So
our economy is wrapped
should you
up
be
in
investing
their economy.
Should you as an investor, you as the head of a company, be investing in a place that does not respect private property, that rips off intellectual property, and that has as its goal the extermination of private enterprise?
Curtis, let me ask you a broader question, because as we've seen, the ante was just upped a little bit, 5% by the president. And he promised he was going to be making a statement. That was it before he leaves for the G7 meeting. A lot of people are asking, particularly on Wall Street, are we interested in getting a deal with China, or are we more interested right now in isolating China as a country that you simply can't do business with? Sounds like that's where you're going.
we never did business with the Soviet Union on the same terms that we did business with Western Germany, France, and Great Britain. We should not be doing business with China the same way that we do business with our allies. I mean, because they don't do business the same way. Those have China has government-supported enterprises. They subsidize their exports. They do not adhere to the rules of the World Trade Organization. They have violated every agreement they signed on to.
Well, let me ask you this,
That's not acceptable.
The market doesn't agree with you,
think
Curtis.
that the president should be having the fight publicly like this on Twitter, attacking the president of China, just, raising the stakes here? For example, the market wasn't open. It's 5:09. But if it were, I could only imagine how it would have reacted to this today. Or should these be conversations that are, had behind the scenes between the leaders, between the two negotiating groups?
Well, we've seen these negotiations being going on for months. And then when it's close to an agreement, China pulls back and then backtracks on all the progress that was made. This is typical business for China. I've spoken with many people who've made many deals in China, and they get everybody excited about ready to sign on the bottom line, and then they renege. So that everybody is so invested in the deal, they say, okay, we'll make a deal anyway. So this is the way they do business. And the president sat down with his trade advisors all day today before he put out these tweets. It's not like he just fired this off without thinking about it. And it's about time that the markets and everybody else understand clearly what's at stake here. This is not about the price of tube socks.
Go ahead, Jonas.
This is about the long-term viability of the American system.
Curtis, Jonas Ferris here. I just want to, because Trump specifically said the unfair tariffs that they just increased. And I want to talk about this recent tweet. Do you think that Chinese are, and to some extent other partners, are specifically tariffing products from states the president needs to win re-election to keep the trade war going? It seems like, whether it's whiskey and to going to Europe, I see there's tariffs. Cars for export to China come out of the South. Other farming, the Farm Belt, they're not like taxing movies and like financial services flows that coming out of states like California. You bring up a very good point,
Jonas. You bring up a very good point. You're exactly right. Chinese are using tariffs as economic sanctions targeting politically sensitive areas. Our tariffs on China came after a long investigation which found specific products were being unfairly subsidized, illegally subsidized, and are in accordance with World Trade Organization standards for imposing tariffs. China retaliated with politically targeted tariffs, not under World Trade Organization auspices, not according to the guidelines that allow them. So they are using their tariffs as economic sanctions to create regime change in the United States, which
Curtis,
is completely wrong.
This whole China stuff has come out on a day when the Fed came out with a report. They're meeting in Jackson Hole. The head of the Federal Reserve, the chairman, came out and said that the thing that would make them more interested in lowering rates is if there was more trade problems with China. It's then when we saw the tweets from the president bringing China up to the fore. Do you think there's any connection there? Was the president trying to force the hand of the Fed by creating more problems for China that would force the Fed to lower rates even more?
Well, it certainly will be a message that Jerome Powell is listening to.
So that's a partial yes on your part.
That is a partial yes on my part. I think that he's made it very clear, as have the markets, that the Fed made a mistake by raising rates earlier this year.
Okay. I just want to reiterate what has happened here, gang, because we'd heard earlier today that the president was going to make some remark about China with their retaliatory trade tariffs on our goods. And in fact, he just did that in a tweet that he issued. I won't read the entire tweet, but starting on October 1st, the $250 billion worth of goods from China that were getting taxed at 25%, it'll go up to 30%. Additionally, the remaining $300 billion that are getting taxed, and I say tax, it's a tariff, but tax, tariff, it's basically the same thing, at 10% will go up to 15%. So a 5% increase on the tariffs that are going to be imposed on all Chinese products. We want to thank Curtis Ellis for joining us in this first segment. Thank you very much. Good stuff. Well,